For tonight, we are joined by our good friend Klaus.
A brief introduction. I'm Klaus Folz. I live in Vienna. I'm originally from Brazil, from a German family, and I study mechanical engineering, but my passion was always programming and data. So I migrated to data, business intelligence, basically, a while ago. And then I relocated to Austria and I started working in Brunner BI. It is a business intelligence company specialized in Power BI. And I started developing Measure Killer as a script for a client, actually. And then it grew and we built this external tool. I will send you those links. So from the Measure Killer, you can download it for free. Just a quick information about how the licensing work. We have a free version and a paid version, a premium version. There's only one feature that is not included in the free version. You can analyze everything, use all the features. The only thing that is different is that if you want to run everything on the Power BI service, you're going to have a premium version. But all the features are in the free version as well. So, okay, enough from me and the introduction. Let me show you guys Measure Killer and how it works. So, Measure Killer is specifically designed for Power BI, basically designed for analyzing semantic models and reports. I have a simple report here. To show you guys, I have it open, and it's quite simple. There's a lot of tables and artifacts, but it's a small report. It's just for showcases, but we have some pages here. You can see some measures, a normal Power BI report. So the question that Measure Killer wants to answer basically is which measures and columns are used and which ones are not. It's super simple, as simple as that. So let me start Measure Killer actually. By the way, you can download it from the home page there. It's free, super fast. And the first thing you see when you open it, you also can open it from the external tools tab. I always open it from the taskbar. I think it's easier. You see all those modes here. Can be a little bit overwhelming, but let me explain quickly to you. So those two first modes, they are the free modes. The other ones only run in the Power BI service. And the first mode is, as the name suggests, just to analyze a single report, as I have here. I have one model and one Power BI report. The second one, you can analyze a golden data set or a shared semantic model. A semantic model and multiple reports are connected to it. You can analyze using this modes. Both of them completely offline. You just have to install the client app, and then you can run it. So let's start with the first mode. I will explain the other modes later. But let's start with the first mode. So the first thing, click there. It will scan for all the reports I have open. I only have one open, the Power BI report for Switzerland. I will click next. And then the main window will appear. And here you can see that I have a list of Power BI reports. I'll click on that. If you don't see your report there, you can always click here and add it to the list like this. Super simple. But it should be selected automatically. So when I click on run, what Measure Killer will do, it will scan the model and it will scan the reports and it will tell you exactly what is used and what is not used. So it can be a little overwhelming. There's a lot on the UI right now, but let me just start with the execution summary here.
Can I ask a quick question, Klaus?
Of course.
So when you say used and unused, like what is the threshold? Is unused some like it truly isn't touched at all when you're refreshing the report or like using slicers, or like is it like, hey, it's been like 6 months, or is there some threshold and is that customizable?
Very good question. So when I say used and unused, I mean if a column is used anywhere in your report, visuals, measures, relationships, Power Query, visual calculation, which is quite new, um, anything you can think of. It's not customizable. Everything is fixed, but if it's used anywhere in your report, basically if you import an Excel sheet, for example, with a lot of columns, you only use 2 of those to build visuals, relationships, and anything else, and everything else is untouched by your report, by your model. It will show here as unused. It's basically empty. Not empty, but
So
useless.
yeah, so if it's unused, you could like blow it away and it won't ruin
Yes.
the report at all.
Yes.
Okay,
If
okay,
it's
that's great.
the idea of Measure Killer, if it's telling you that it's unused, you can delete it without any consequences. You can just save memory, basically, space. Sorry, not memory. So you can save space just by removing it. Let's take a look. Any other questions? No? Okay. We'll just amplify here because it can be a little small. So the execution summary here will basically give you, as the name suggests, a summary of your model and or report if you like, if you prefer. And it's telling me that 78% of this model is used, and 16%, as you can see, is quite a small report, but 16% is unused. There's also used by unused. I will go into that later. A little bit more complicated, but you have also 23 unused measures, 20 unused columns, and 3 unused calculated columns. Now let's go back. And then there is this huge table here, and that's my favorite part of Measure Killer, because now here we have a complete list of all the measures and columns in your model, in your report, and you can see if it's used, unused, and if it's used, you can see exactly where it is used. I will take one example here, the average temperature. This is a measure. Let's take a look. Average temperature. I know you guys don't like Celsius, but so this is basically the measure, quite simple, just averaging a column. And you can see that this measure is used in other artifacts. So it's used to build other measures. So for example, this one, measure display charts. I can check if this is true, actually, if what measure is telling me is true. If I click here, where is the average temperature? And here we go. So we have the average temperature being used in this measure. We also have this measure being used in field parameters and also visuals. So here, actually, I can magnify this because it must be quite small for you. So you can see here that the average temperature is used in a card, which is a visual in the tooltip tree map page. And we only have one report. This will be relevant later. In a line chart, a table across all the pages, basically. And we can actually test this, obviously. So if I go to the pivot, actually, this table visual in the visual calculations page. So this is here, I guess. Yes, let me just close that. Oh yeah, here it is. And we can see that it's used in the table. It's also used in a visual calculation, which is quite new and is in the average temperature in Kelvin and the same page. Oh yeah, this one. So if I click there, it should be in my visual calculation expression. And there we have it. So average temperature plus a Kelvin ratio to Celsius. Quite interesting. And before you ask, when I say used in visual, it will detect x-axis table fields, conditional formatting, everything, basically. It will detect everything. Okay, furthermore, so no questions. Just reset this table. Okay.
I see. Paul is asking a question. Is it possible to iterate over a collection of semantic models, let's say all the models and/or reports in a workspace, and collect this metadata?
Oh, yes, it is, but I will get to that later. I promise.
Okay.
This is the simpler use case from Azure Killer. It's only one report and one model, the simplest way. I will just show you the main features, but the features will basically be the same for the other use cases. It will make sense once I get there. But I'll remember that question. Thank you. So after you analyze this, you can also just filter all the unused, and then we can see that, oh, okay, there's some unused stuff here. So unused columns and calculated columns, and we want to get rid of them, right? And there is also this yellow status that used by unused. So this means that, for example, you have a measure using another measure, and let's say the child measure is not used at all. So the parent measure has this used by unused status. For example, the child unused by unused is only used by this is just some sample measures, but is being referenced in those two measures. So if you open the DAX expression, you right click there and you can see that it's just being reference like this. So the grandchild measure is using the child measure, and then therefore the child is used by unused. It's that simple. And it can also go down several levels, basically infinite levels of, if nothing is used in a sub level, it will classify as used by unused. It's a kind of a recursive method. So, okay, that's cool, but what should we do now with this? We have all the columns, all the tables. Let's clean up this report. Let's make it faster and better. So I can go to the Q measures and calculated columns. So for measures and calculated columns, it's that simple. Actually, let me just divide the screen here so you guys can see Measure Killer in action. So I have a couple of measures here, and I'm just going to select them, as they are already all selected. So I just click on Q. This is going to write to the model, and then here we go. I'm cleaning up my report, and it will remove automatically all of the unused measures and columns. And as you can see, the model is already going a little bit buggy, but it will remove everything. And there we have it. All the unused measures in column and calculated columns are removed. But now we're starting to get all of those used by unused, and then they will repopulate. We can kill them again. It will require a couple of iterations normally for big reports, and then we'll find the parents and remove them. And now we have a cleaner report. So this wrote to the model, and now we have no unused measures or calculated columns. Only the columns are left. Because the measures in the calculated columns are easy to remove, you just write to the model a command, like writing a C# script for tabular editor. Oh, and by the way, we have the option to generate a C# script, but we don't have anything to remove it. So that's the first step to cleaning up your report. The second step is removing, obviously, the the columns that actually have a space, right? They have a size. The calculated columns also. So what we do here? So what Measure Killer does, it creates a new M code for you, because we cannot just remove the columns automatically. Actually, we can, but I will go into that very soon. So I just copy this guy, and now I will go back to my report. I will open up my Power Query. And which one do I got? Sorry, fact weather, my fact table. I have a couple. Where's the fact weather? Here we go. And then it's quite manual, but there is a second option. And then we just paste. Now notice that there is a new step added here. So what Measure Killer does, it will add a step to the end of the query, and it will remove all of the unused columns. And then I'll click on done, new step added. I'll just close and apply and refresh that table. Let's take a look. I hope this refreshes. It's been a while since I refreshed this. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, let's go back to the report and let's take a look at the report. The weather map. Everything seems to be fine. Everything seems to be working. And that's it. And then if you do this multiple times, you're going to have a cleaner report without anything being unused and quite useless, right? Just close this and let me go back to Measure Killer. So those are the main features. Like, to get the results, you can see where measures columns are used. You can see if they are unused, and if they are unused, remove them completely from your report. There's some extra functions, some extra tabs that you can see here. So there is the table view. We don't have all the list of the artifacts, meaning measures and columns, but you have a list of the tables, and you can see if those tables are used also. So not only columns and measures, but also tables. So for example, this table, the dimension countries is used in Power Query as a Power Query reference in the fact trades table. Well, let's see if this is true. Let's take a look. Where is the facts trade here? If I open up Advanced Editor, we should have dimension countries somewhere there. Oh, here we go. Yes. So merged queries. Yeah, here we go. We have a reference. It's being merged. So you can see that. And you should also see the columns being used in this function right there. So we detect everything. Power Query, model like relationships, field parameters, row level security, object level security, basically everything. And if Measure Killer tells you can remove something, you can remove something. There's also some extra features here. You can basically search. You see in a single table all of your DAX expressions. Can be useful sometimes if you want to find some Power BI criminals that are using some crazy functions like a calculate together with a filter maybe, or I don't know, a cross join, for example, can be quite bad sometimes, and stuff like that. You can also see the M expressions. So if you want to search, for example, you want to see which tables are consuming a view from a SQL database. You can do that. You can just
real quick, Klaus.
Yeah,
quick
of
question.
course.
Are you able to text search those expressions in that window you're in?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Ooh,
So for example,
nice.
I think I have an API. Probably all of them will have this, but then you can see which tables are actually calling this API, and it's not case sensitive. And then you can see give a collapse here a bit easier. Unfortunately, we don't highlight the text that you search, but we will add that in the future. Quite tricky though. It's probably here in the source now. There's a huge thing. But yes, you can search. So it's especially useful if you want to search for example, a database role or something like that. And later I'll show you how to do that for the whole tenant using Measure Killer, not only for one report. And the last extra feature I would say is the plot results, so you can have a simple visualization here, like the absolute unused size over time. Yeah, so we have a spike here. Sometimes you remove some columns and there will be a spike there because of the vertipack compression, which is quite difficult to understand, I might add. So basically that's it for the main features of Measure Killer. Any questions so far? Please interrupt me at any time. No?
We're getting a lot of amazing tool. This is awesome in the chat.
Thank you, guys.
So a lot of positive reactions.
Thank you.
But yeah, if anybody has any questions. I do know we had Paul's questions still ruminating. Maybe you want to get, oh, I see Kelly. You have a question?
Yeah, I have what might be a really dumb question because I'm very new to Power BI and we're just like implementing this at our organization.
There are no dumb questions. There are no dumb questions. You are good.
So, one of our goals is to create semantic models for self-service. And so I'm still sort of understanding where transformations happen within like the whole Fabric ecosystem. So like, that's why I'm saying this could potentially be a dumb question. But like when you're running this and taking the columns out, or is it just the semantic model that's connected to that report? Or are you taking them out of the semantic model that like potentially lives in a little Fabric data warehouse?
It's only for the semantic level, only for the semantic model level. So basically,
okay.
You don't go up to the database or anything like data flow. If you have a data flow, if you have anything else above, let's say above, and when I mean that the semantic model is pulling data from, we don't do anything. It's only the model, the semantic model. That was a very good question.
Right. And if the semantic model is being used by multiple reports, it'll catch that.
Oh, yes, I will get that in a bit. I promise.
Awesome.
I promise.
Thank you.
Steve, great question. Great question.
Great question, exactly. So just to finish it quickly here, I know you guys are excited about the other modes. Let me just show you that if you made a mistake, imagine that you created a measure, you deleted the measure, but you wanted to use that measure for something else in the future, you can always just restore those measures. Now, super simple stats. So we have restore everything Measure Killer removes. It will be saved in a backup folder. The backup folder by default is a folder inside the app data, so it's local, super easy. What you can do also is change this folder like a SharePoint or anything you like, and Measure Killer will send the backups there. And the backups are very simple. They are just a JSON file with some information used to restore those measures. But enough of that. But enough of that. Let's go back. So you can restore the measures you deleted, obviously. And you can also export, which is quite cool. So you can basically export a very, very, very detailed view of this table. And you can also export this as a JSON file. The JSON file is massive. It has a lot of details, many more that you have here in the table. So I suggest you guys, if you use the tool, explore it. It's super detailed. You can even use it to build a Power BI report, basically. But no. We also have the what if analysis. This is quite complicated to explain, but it's basically a reversed view of this table. So you can, for example, view all, for example, in the visual level, you can see which columns are being used to build that visual. So if you have a measure using a column and you put that measure in the visual, we're gonna basically tell you this visual will require to the most basic level of all of those columns. It's more complicated, requires a little more of exploration and understanding what we mean. There's a few documentation. I will not go into detail right now, but feel free to explore and also message me if you want more details, obviously. And one of my favorite new features also is the best practices analyzer. Basically, it's very similar to tabular editor if you are familiar with tabular editor. So you open up this tab and you can basically rank this report based on the best practices. Then we have a violation score, so it will tell you more or less how this report is doing in terms of the best practices. And you can see all the rules here. And you can, if you expand the rule, so for example, this rule, do not use float, so that decimals, data types, and you can see all of the all of the columns that are violating this rule. There's some extra rules like consider a star schema instead of other architectures. So this is important. I never seen in real life a star schema, to be honest. It's quite rare, but it's a best practice nevertheless. We also have like formatting, so there's all the best practices rules provided by Microsoft. And that's it, basically. That's it. So I will talk about one last feature in the single mode, and then I will go to the really exciting stuff. So you see here, I didn't comment on the one-click optimization. Now, what I did so far was opening up the report in Power BI desktop, and then I ran Measure Killer and I removed the measures and calculated columns. Then if I wanted to, obviously, I would just replace manually all the M codes to remove all of the unused calculated columns. There is a second option, which is the one-click optimization. There is a catch though. What we have to do here is we have to save the Power BI report using the new PBIP format, so the project format, and also the Tyndall, the new Tyndall format. So luckily, I have it already. Oh god, just remove those names. Okay, actually, I will just close this. So close, I will not save. And I already have a project here. So it's basically the same exact report. It's just in the PBIP format using Tyndall also. So you can see that there is so it's using the Tyndall format. So if you save the report using this new format, which I find amazing, by the way, I highly recommend. I know it's still in preview, but super useful. It's taking forever, sorry about that. So if you don't know, just quickly, you go to File, and then you go to Options and Settings, Options there, if I'm not mistaken. And if it decides to open, then Preview Features, and here, we just use the magnifier. It's quite small. So Power BI Project, PBIP, Save option, and Store Semantic Model using Tyndall format. So those two enabled, and you'll be able to use that in the offline modes. Oopsie. So I will do the exact same thing. I'll open Measure Killer, I'll be a little faster now, so we don't waste time. Hopefully it won't take long. Oh, and one thing that I forgot to mention is that Measure Killer does not support PBIR, so the new report format yet. It will come out in the next version, 2.4, but still 4 weeks away, more or less. So we'll just run again, and it's the exact same report. Let's just wait a little, connecting, analyzing all the artifacts. Here we go. So it's the same exact report as you can see. And if you are really, you don't have time and you want to run in one go, you can click into a one-click optimization. We have a little disclaimer here. You have to the PBIP format to see it, and the team know what I just described to you. And then you just click yes. And then it will prompt you to save a new file. So what it will actually do, it will not write to the model, but it will save a new report, a new PBIP file. So let me just save that in my desktop here. So I'll save it here. And then you can see it removes everything. There was a little OS object level security error there. Object level security doesn't work, so we cannot remove it. This is just a detail. So what I will do now, I will just close this guy and take a look at the new optimize. So you see, now we have new folder, about 2 new folders, and the optimized version of the report. So let's open this guy, see how it looks like. And then let me just go back and run this guy again. They will not take forever to load again.
Well, Klaus, while
Meanwhile,
this is loading, got a question for you.
Of course.
And we've just been chatting about it up and down, and I think I'm like getting to the answer. But it looks like the question was, can IT block external tools, or like how can you work with IT to get external tools working? Now, I'm not seeing a Power BI admin setting for external tools, which I thought it was. It's not like a Power BI visual. Power BI visuals, they don't, like the third-party visuals can be turned off or they can be blessed by IT. But since external tools, you're bringing it in locally and registering it locally on your local Power BI desktop. Doesn't seem like there's some overarching IT policy unless you can't download that file and register it to desktop.
Very good question.
Have you ever, have you got into any of those situations with companies?
Not for installing, because we're pretty straightforward. So installing and running it offline, it's pretty simple. We just have to install it. We have a complete security white paper, as they call it. We can analyze that. It will work completely offline, so we are not sending data anywhere. We don't even look at data, so it's just metadata. Metadata meaning the name of the tables, the expressions, not the actual data inside those tables. So for installing and running it offline, we had never had problems. What we did have is when, and I will show to you guys that in how it works in a minute, is when we do Power BI REST API calls, sometimes there is a proxy blocking or a firewall, and then we have to send all the list of the APIs, the domains, so the IT department, the security department can figure that out. It depends on the company. But installing and running it offline, we never had problems with that.
That's great to know.
So far, no. And it's quite simple actually, because it doesn't do anything anything crazy. The only thing, we actually have 2 versions of the installer, since you mentioned. I'll go to the free download here. So we have the admin version, so you require admin rights, and the portable version, which you do not. So the portable version, the only difference between those, it's the exact same external tool. The only difference is that we need admin rights to add the external tool button here, which is, I mean, you can just open using this, but it's not a big difference. And if you install the portable version, you don't need the admin rights. You can basically just install it. It will go to your app data, your user app data will be installed there. You run perfectly and offline. Okay, so for the optimized version, you can see now, if I run Measure Killer again, this is the optimized version. We should see almost 100% used. Besides that little column for the object level security, that's 100%. We have a little unused. So you can just use the one-click optimization and it will clean your report completely in one go and fast, super fast. That's my favorite thing about it. Okay. Now let's go to the cool stuff. So this example is super simple, right? It's just one report, one model, can be really useful, but in real life scenarios, we have a shared data set. And that's actually how Measure Killer came to be. We work mostly with developing Power BI for clients, and one of our clients had a huge shared data set for self-service, and they didn't know what was going on there. So there was thousands of columns, hundreds of measures. They didn't know where anything was used. If they could remove the refresh was taking forever. There was a lot of transformations. And then I started developing a Python script, which turned into being Measure Killer. We just added a not so fancy UI on top of it, basically. But let me show you how this works. I have an example ready to go here. So let's take a look at the weather data set. If I go to view lineage, now it's getting confused. Here we go. And I see the impact analysis. I think if I click here, what's the impact analysis? Oh, here we go. Okay. So I have a data set, the weather data set. And as you can see, by looking at the impact analysis, I have a lot of reports connected to it. I have paginated reports connected to it, and I have 6 more items with limited access, which means I'm an admin in my tenant, but you can see that not even me with admin rights can actually detect all of the reports. So in a basic environment, ignoring the semantic models for now, I will run mode 3. And now to run it online is part of the premium version, but you can do the exact same thing using mode 2. I will show you how. So let's take a look here. So the first thing, I clicked on mode 3, the shared online mode, and it will ask for my credentials. This is used to do the Power BI REST APIs, and it's an OAuth 2 authentication interactive browser, they call it, and it's completely between you, the user, and Microsoft. We will get a token that is valid for an hour to do all the API calls. And so, and then Measure Killer will open this new window where you have to select where the data set is located. So my weather data set, as you can see here, is located in the Brunner BI projects. I'm gonna go there. So I click here, it will load my data sets, and here we have the weather data set. We'll click on next, and then now I need to choose the workspaces where Measure Killer will search for connected reports. I will select all. For simplicity, it's a small tenant, just a couple of workspaces. Let's click on next. So now what Measure Killer is doing is scanning all the workspaces I just selected for connected reports to the weather data set. Let's see what the results are. Here we go. Oh yeah. So let's take a look at this result. Sorry. So the weather data set is the parent, let's say, and then we have a couple of reports connected to it, as you can see here, and paginated reports. And now this is one of the coolest features. So we have the model, and then we have several reports connected to it. When I click on run, what Measure Killer will do, it will connect to the model. It will fetch all the layouts from the report. So basically the definition of the report, and it will analyze all of the reports and combine the results so you can see if a measure is used or not across all reports. Let me just run those guys.
That's pretty amazing, by the way.
Thank you. Glad you like it. Can be
and you were
useful.
saying this was, and because this is actually calling up to the Power BI service, this is where you're saying you might have IT issues?
Yeah, so sometimes the IT departments can block certain URLs, and they have to whitelist. Depends very much on the software. We have also an option to use proxy, so we have it can be a little bit complicated, but there's always a solution.
It's good to know.
So yeah, let's take a look at this. So here we have the web data set, and then we have everything. Let's take a look, see if I can find a good example for you. Let's just sort by the number of uses. And I think this is a very good example. Yeah, I think this is perfect. So I have a column called name from these cities table. And this name, it's probably the name of the city, I assume, is used across several visuals, in several pages, in several reports. So we have been using a slicer in the Pro Austria forecast, in the weather mobile buggy, and yeah, a lot. Also used in visual level filters and page level filters, and also incredibly used in paginated reports. So that's quite interesting. So it's the same exact results. You can kill, but beware, you're gonna write to the model in the service, and can be quite problematic. So if you know what you're doing, just click on kill. But if you do not know, beware. Can be complicated. And same thing, you can take a look at the best practice. So it's the same exact UI. The only difference is that we have a new tab here where you have to select the report you want to analyze. Before anybody asks this question, what if I don't have access to a workspace where there is a report connected to this semantic model? Let me show you. Oh, actually, let me just go back a little bit, because I just showed you the premium version and I want to show you guys how to do this with the free version. It's more interesting because if you have everything offline, meaning that you can download this file, so you can go here and download this file. And just close this old guy here. And open mode 2. I will open the weather data. Just click here. So you don't have to wait. So if you can download the dataset file, the PBIX, if I go to downloads, you'll see I just downloaded the PBIX there, as you can see here. So if you can do that, and if you can download all of the report files, you can simply run mode 2 for your connected reports. It's very similar to mode 1. The only difference is that you can add multiple reports. Let me go back. So I have the weather data set open here. It's the exact same model that I have here, uploaded to the service. I can even download it to make sure. So let's take a look. So what I will do now, I will click on the mode 2, and similar to the first mode, the single report, there will be a drop down here with all the models that I have open in Power BI desktop at the moment. Select, click next. Usually click note is like here, you just add the report from the weather data set, but it's simply an empty page, as it's just the semantic model. So the report is irrelevant, but let's just add it. Will not change a thing. So then I'm asked to add it. And then voila. So here I have to add a data set. And now I can add reports. I can click either here and select them manually, but I prefer to just drag and drop them. So I can select, I will not select the weather data set, is already there, and I'll just drag and drop here. So if I have all of the reports and I can download all of the reports, this is the best way to use Measure Killer. And then I will click on run, and I will have the exact same results. Let's take a look again at this column name there. So yeah, wow. And you're wondering, why do I have more uses there? I will go into that in a second. So the same exact results with a little difference. So if I go back now, the shared data set, Brunner BI projects, click there. Let's take a look at this again. So just look at the lineage of the weather data set. Oops, right. There we go. So you see that I have not all of the reports. Obviously, I have the paginated reports here, but I didn't add them there for a while. They are annoying. I don't like paginated reports. I don't know about you, but you see that I have actual more reports there. So I don't have the Europe snow report. That's because the Europe snow report is in a workspace I don't have access to. How do I circumvent that? Now is one of the coolest features of Measure Killer, in my humble opinion, is the tenant admin mode. Now, I have to tell you a disclaimer, basically, because you need to be an admin to run this, a tenant admin. But it's if you are an admin and you want to completely analyze a very large model with a lot of reports connected to it, you use this guy right there, mode 4, tenant admin mode. It's really powerful. And let me show you why. So click on search.
Did you say that's part of the free tier, or is this part of the paid
No,
tier?
this is part of the premium version, yes.
Nice.
But this mode is the most powerful one, and it's quite impossible to build something like that offline. We tried, and this is that feature that I'm about to tell you that is only available in the premium mode. So actually there's two, but let's see. So I will click on the weather data set again, and just as Gregory just said, it's part of the premium version. Let's see. Oh, and now you see, wow, the list is way bigger than before. That's because I'm running as an admin. And as an admin, I can run the admin API calls. If you guys use the Power BI REST API calls before, I mean that gigantic workspace info, or AKA the scanner API. It's amazing, but you need to be an admin to use that API call. So you can see here that, oh, suddenly I have the Europe snow report, but it is in this weather workspace, and I do not have access to that workspace. If you are an admin, it's quite simple. You just add yourself to that workspace, right? And that's exactly what Measure Killer will do. But before I do that, before I run, I need to show you guys the downstream semantic models. So the downstream semantic models, also, as I like to call them, the child models, they are those reports that you create, you connect to a Power BI semantic model in the service, and then you create a direct query to the model. It's not only a report, it's not only a theme or a live report connected to the semantic model, but a whole new model connected to it, and you can add new sources, so it gets very complicated. And that's one of a feature that only exists in the premium versions of Measure Killer, because it's quite impossible to build that for it's not impossible. It's just very, 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 very hard to build that in the offline nodes. Offline, so you have to basically build the lineage. So that's crazy. Can get really complicated. But anyways, so what measure killer will detect here is even if you change the name, because if you create a downstream semantic model, you can rename the measures and columns and tables from the original model. That's no problem. Measure killer will detect that. And then if we have time later, I can show you an example. But let's run this now. And what measure killer will do, it will again fetch all the reports, definitions, get the models from the downstream semantic models, and it will analyze everything. So when we say this measure from the weather dataset is not used, you can remove it safely. There's also a third option, not a third option, but another feature. And I think I have something here that you can imagine that you have those, the finance department is known for doing this kind of thing, but the people that use the analyze in Excel, have you ever heard of that? So it's quite common in financial departments. They like to go here and
always the finance department. Always.
It's always the finance department. So they like
Accounting.
to do that, and you can add those those files manually. Unfortunately, it's only manually, but it's quite useful. So let me do that. So I will add this temperature, and then I have to select which model is that file connected to. Is the weather data set. And now we can see that there is a local file, the temperature analysis in Kelvin, as a local file added. So we will, if somebody is using analyzing in Excel, that the Excel file is really important, it will be there. Another thing is the fetch activity logs. So let's take a look here. So I can see who created if I run this, and then I can get in contact with it. It's a little detail that we added. So you have to click on fetch activity logs, and you will be able to detect if something was created on top of the model that you were analyzing. And something, I mean, an analyzing Excel file is an extra feature. Usually the analyzing Excel files are not that important, so it's extra. So here we go. Then I will click on run. And what measure killer will do now, as you know, I don't have access to the weather workspace, but I actually forgot to mention that the personal workspace, actually, let me go back here a little bit, because there is actually a report in a personal workspace, my workspace, but from my boss actually, so I can get access to my boss's personal workspaces. Personal workspace. Of course, I'm an admin, but it can be quite useful if there is somebody using the model and they send they upload a report to their personal workspace, and if you set the setting on, I'll show you guys later that how do you set this on, you can measure killer will also detect and be able to analyze those reports. Let me just run this. So I'm measure killer is granting access, and now it is acquiring the semantic models metadata. It takes a while because there's a lot of semantic models, not a lot, but a couple. And then it will fetch all of the reports and run the exact same analysis as before. Now it's fetching the definitions or the layouts of the reports. 18s. It'll take a little bit. And here we go. Oh yes, and of course, after it fetched all of the layouts and the model's metadata, it will prompt you if you want to remove the access it granted for those two workspaces, so the personal and the weather. I will just remove from the personal workspace and then run. And here we go. This is a detailed visual, sorry, a detailed table with all the reports, and if it was fetched successfully, can close that. It's not really important because all of them were successful. You can also see them here if they were fetched or not. And now what we see here is the exact same results as before, with obviously more information. So now I can see. This is correct. So I can also select the child, the child models. I will keep on the weather data set, which is the main one. And again, going back to these cities, I can see that now I have more uses, obviously, because I added all the reports that are connected to it. I can see that this name column is used in a report level measure. A report level measure or model extension is a measure that you create in a thin or live report. So you connect the report with a live connection, and then you create one of those measures. It's a report level measure. We will also detect that, obviously. So you can see here, chance of snow, a string, and then a selected value on that exact column. We can also see, let me see now if I remember which one is it. I think is one of those here. Oh, yes. So one of the measures is only used in the Excel file. So quite useful. Also, quite useful. So it will detect everything that you added there. Any questions so far?
Any questions?
I
see Kelly. Yes.
I've got another one.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, because if you go through and you clean all of these unused measures out of your, like I've been seeing the things in the chat about like the source of truth data sets, which I think is really cool. I think this is a great tool for that. But what is your suggestion for how to communicate or train people not to go back in and just recreate them all again? Because like I'm thinking about people who create a measure in a semantic model and they don't actually use it in a visual right then, but maybe they're planning to, and then you delete it. Or like there are just a couple of scenarios where I can think about where this could potentially negatively impact a user, and I'm wondering, like, how do you balance that?
That's a very good question. So usually what I do, and I use Measure Killer all the time because I develop, my main role is actually Power BI developer, so I'm always doing reports. And what I usually do, and I know it's not the best practice, so when I'm creating a new report, I import a lot of data columns from databases, and it's just a huge report. And that's okay for the development phase. And I run the measure, I test it out, and when I release it to production, when I know that the report there will be, we're gonna edit the model and the report in the future, obviously. But once it's more or less done, then I run Measure Killer for the first time, or even better, when there is that old model that everybody uses and everybody's so afraid of deleting something that is going to break everything, but the performance is so bad, the refreshing is taking so much time that you don't have any other option. And then Measure Killer is basically perfect for that situation. You just run it, you see where everything is used, and then you can start cleaning up. And then you can even go to the best practices and even improve even more your model and your report. And that's where I think will be the best use, especially for big reports. Big semantic models.
Yeah, I'll just tack on and say, I mean, typically you're trying to optimize certain semantic models, you know, at a iterative and, you know, once in a while time versus like, hey, every day. And, you know, when Klaus was mentioning, you know, in a workspace, you're going to have, you know, reports or semantic models that are still under construction that haven't been published to an app yet, right? Like, probably doesn't make sense to go do measure killer on those that aren't being published and used, where performance is something that you care about, right? I think unless it's been published and you've got tons of users using it and you're in that optimize sprint or optimize mode, that's where this makes sense.
Yes, I agree. And as you mentioned, I'm not creating the same thing multiple times. You can also check the duplicated DAX expressions in the DAX expressions tab. Can be quite useful. So you're creating the same expression several times, and I myself did that a lot, actually. So, for example, will be renamed measure, and then will be renamed measure too. And I look at the expression, it's the same because I just copied it basically. So, yeah, it can be useful. But usually for larger models, and I also use it a lot actually in my day-to-day development routine to check where certain measures and columns are used. So I just want to see if, where this is used. So for example, for some reason, I want to change the DAX expression. So I'm using a keep filters, and I want to change that to fix a total in a table, for example. So the totals are always off in Power BI. It's quite a meme now. And I want to check where this measure is used. Can I change this measure without impacting other visuals? So I change the expression and it will not break another visual somewhere else, or even in someone else's report, right? That can be useful for that also. I hope I answered your question.
You did. No, thank you. I just, like I said, we're new, we're developing, and so as I learn things, I have questions.
Yeah, please.
Just keep coming back, Kelly, and asking the hard questions.
Yes.
Love it.
But there's even a more powerful mode, and that's the last thing I'm going to show you guys today. And this is more of a high level. What do I mean by that? It will not go into the where every single column and measure is used, but it will give the Power BI admin an overview of the tenant. And is an extra feature of Measure Killer. It's not the main feature, but it can be quite useful for a lot of use cases. Let me go back to the first window of Measure Killer. So the first thing you open, so I showed you guys all of those 4 initial modes. The last mode is still in preview, is for analysis services. We're still working on it, but you can test it, but it's not done yet. We'll connect to the analysis services model, and we'll do the same analysis, getting all the reports and downstream models and everything. And we'll analyze and give you which measures and columns are used from the analysis services database. But there is the 5th mode. So those 5 modes, the 4 first one and the 6, they're very similar. They will analyze where columns and measures are used, basically. But the tenant analysis mode, this is quite a powerful mode, especially for tenant admins. I will go quickly. It can be a little overwhelming, but basically what this mode will do, it will run a complete analysis of your tenant. Since I already ran Measure Killer, it already analyzed a couple of reports, but basically what you have in the selection tab here, are all the workspaces, and inside them, all of the artifacts. They're only the semantic models and the reports. And what you can do, you can select everything and then run for the whole tenant, depending on the size of the tenant. Can take a while. But since we already have something analyzed, and I actually can show you guys here. So we have, for example, an overview of the workspaces. Basically, it's super simple. But where it gets interesting is the data source lineage, for example. So I showed you guys the weather data set in the Power BI report for Switzerland. And there I used a very specific API call called the weather API. So we have 3 instances of the weather API, and I can see where that guy is being used. So that can be very useful. So this is the data source lineage. I have a SQL database and I want to check which reports are consuming it. I want to check if I change something in one table in that database, will I break something? At least here is not a complete view down to the semantic model, down to the column level, but you can already see where it will impact if you do something. If you do a change to that table in the database, for example. Now, you can also see a complete and full view of the access, meaning which user or group have access to certain objects. So let's look at my user. I have access to 47 workspaces, a lot of semantic models, a lot of reports. Also, you can see who has access to certain reports. I think we also have some interesting stuff here. I just don't completely remember. Oh, yes. So for example, do you see Sebastian has access to this weather data set, but he doesn't have access to that workspace where the weather data set is. Sometimes this can be a security issue. So you grant access, read, write, reshare to a guest user. Can be an issue, can be useful, but it's all, again, it's an overview of the tenant of the accesses. And here, running, obviously, I just ran for 5 models, so there's not a lot, but if you ran for all of the models, you will see every single one of them detailed here, all of the models. Obviously, sometimes there's an error, so we can analyze, but that's quite rare now. But this is very interesting. You can click here and check the best practices. So it's great for tenant admins. Imagine that you have a model and this model is destroying your capacity. It's taking forever to refresh. You have the average refresh duration here. What is going on? You can take a look here quickly and run. For example, I'm actually going to run for one more model that I have here, and this is actually a real report. It's not a test report. This is a real live report. And where is this guy actually? Just see Power BI built by a criminal. Here we go. So this report, this model right here is gigantic. So actually running the analysis now, I could select everything, but it will take a while. I don't want to make you guys wait so much. Oh, and also we can check the model lineage. So if the model is using a data flow, okay, so it's using 2 data flows. Which data sources are those data flows using? So they're using a bunch of, what is this, shared point Excel files. And here the same thing. Actually, this is only using the weather API. We can see also the downstream. So it's a complete lineage field. And I know, and I'm sorry, this can be a little overwhelming, but it's quite useful for tenant elements. But there is a lot of information here. So you see this Power BI report for a criminal is just massive. It has 1,444 calculated columns. If I expand this guy, I can see that they have local date tables on 90 megabytes. It's just massive, 1,000 calculated columns. So the local date tables are those when you have the auto date time on the settings, and it creates those tables for each date column you have on Power BI, I guess, and it can be pretty bad for performance. So you already see here. So what's going on here is you can message the responsible for this report, which is me, by the way, and clean this up, right? This is destroying the capacity. So please, or something similar, right? Something that I also got asked a lot is for finding out which reports have custom visuals, for example. So if you go to the Power BI reports tab here, you will see all the details about the reports. So you can see that the report built by a criminal has 51 hidden pages. There's a page with 267 visuals. It's just massive. It's just gigantic. So it's pretty bad. This report caused a lot of problem in a real company, but yeah, we can actually see that now. We can also, if you just do a tweak here, you can search, for example, for custom visuals. And I know that custom visuals can be a security issue sometimes, especially if it's doing some external connections. And then you can basically just do a custom visual search. Just write custom on the type, and will show you all the custom visuals, and it will also show if it's certified or not. You can also search for all the DAX expressions in your tenant. Obviously, I only ran for a couple of models, so there's not all of my DAX expressions. So you can see basically, if you want to search for people using cross-join, calculate with filter, or anything related that can cause performance issues, this tab can be useful. You can also check for duplicated DAX expressions across your tenant. So for example, I have a couple here, and yeah, this is not very good. And then the weather data set also, and then you can message the responsible and say, yeah, you have duplicated text expressions. Maybe it's even a mistake, a copy and paste or something like that. It can be useful. And again, the M expressions. So you can just type a text and search for something using the anything basically. So we'll search the expression. So if you want to search for database roles or API calls or URLs or connection strings, maybe you'll find everything here, including parameters. So you guys have any questions? So far, I know this can be really overwhelming.
You did a great job walking through it all, and I loved your examples. Just thank Klaus for being here with us. Way to go.
I hope
this seems like a really powerful tool. A fantastic evening, everybody.
Bye, guys. Have a nice evening. Thank you very much.
Everyone, thank you.